So hypothetically, if a brand new Banjo Kazooie game was coming out, who should develop it? Let's discuss right now.
I got hot sauce in my bag, swag.
A quick shout out to Decent Customs and Games. This is the fan art of Metal Duckles that they, I don't know if it's just drawn or if this is like an actual like real thing that they made in real life. If you can let me know in the comment section below, that'd be really awesome. But either way, it looks pretty awesome. Metal Duckles, it looks very, very rough, but I'm loving that new look for him. He looks like he's a badass and like can cut anyone that gets in his way. So it's really awesome. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, hello there beautiful human, my name is RidersDX and welcome to my channel where today I've got an interesting discussion video for you all in terms of Banjo Kazooie's future. And so I know that like I've gotten a lot of new subscribers over here that are fans of Banjo Kazooie, and Banjo Kazooie is still like a franchise that's relatively new to me, so I'm in the process of playing the original game right now and we're just gonna see like how I feel about it, and I'm probably gonna make a review on it in the near future, so you can look out for that. But in the meantime, I kind of had this weird question in my head, and that was, if Microsoft decides to put out a brand new Banjo Kazooie game, who would be developing it? Because we've got a couple options that are likely, but at the same time also have reasons why they wouldn't be like the best idea or why they probably wouldn't happen. And yeah, so I just want to go over a few of the main choices and also some really out of the box and weird ideas that I had in terms of like who could make the next Banjo Kazooie game, and we could just have a really nice discussion about who we would want to see develop the next game and why. And so I have a total of 3 different choices that we could go with, and so please stick to the end of the video if you wanted to hear all 3 choices that I'm gonna cover. 2 of them are very obvious, but one of them I can guarantee you probably haven't thought of. So here we go. Now the first choice I have in terms of a company that would develop the next Banjo Kazooie game would be of course Rare. And so Rare is one of the first like groups that people can think of, simply because Rare technically was the group that made the original Banjo Kazooie games, and of course they are under the wing of Microsoft. And so since Microsoft still owns the right to Banjo Kazooie, Rare would be one of the choices that could very well likely make the next Banjo Kazooie game. The thing is, like, we have seen previous reports in the past of Rare reportedly not being interested in making a Banjo Kazooie game, but I think that tone has shifted recently, at least in terms of like their support for the brand, because ever since we saw the review of Banjo Kazooie and Smash Bros. Ultimate, Rare has publicly retweeted a bunch of Banjo Kazooie stuff and even tweeted some Banjo Kazooie related content on their Twitter page, and they've probably done the same thing on their various other social media accounts. I didn't get a chance to check them, but I know on Twitter for sure that they have been promoting Banjo Kazooie, whether it be like nostalgic like look backs at the franchise or just retweeting like certain merchandise that's being released in conjunction with Smash Bros. Ultimate. I also remember that tweet that Rare had thanking fans again for their immense support and how surprised they basically were by the support of Banjo Kazooie. So Rare has definitely taken into account how much support there is for Banjo Kazooie, so they are very well aware of how big this reaction is, and that might have incentivized them to look into making a brand new Banjo Kazooie game. The problem I see potentially with this though is that most of Rare right now did not work on original Banjo Kazooie games, so even though you have Rare's name attached to the next Banjo Kazooie project, if that was going to happen, it's not the actual Rare that brought those games to us. It's a different company, different people that's evolved over the past couple decades or so. They make completely different games now compared to the late 90s when they made the Banjo Kazooie games, and so there's no guarantee that if Rare were the ones to make this game that it would live up to the legacy that the first 2 Banjo Kazooie games had. I mean, we even had like nuts and bolts, and I think that involved like the original creators, and even that was met with lukewarm reception. And so if they couldn't get it right 10 years ago, what makes you think they could get it right now? And that's a question that I just can't answer. I mean, it could go either way. Now, I'm not saying that Rare is incapable of making a good Banjo Kazooie game. I'm just saying that like there's not a lot of evidence that they could actually pull it off. And so while they would be one of the first choices that people think of, is not exactly as great of a choice that people might be thinking. Now, the second choice that I want to bring up that might seem like a better choice but may not be as realistic is Playtonic Games. So Playtonic is a company that was made sometime after Nuts and Bolts were released, and with this company company. I don't know too much about them in terms of their specific history, but I do know that they consist of a lot of the original people that did work on the Banjo Kazooie games. And so these people left Rare sometime after Nuts and Bolts were released and formed this brand new company. And they came out with Yooka-Laylee, which is a spiritual successor to Banjo Kazooie. And so if we really wanted the original people to work on this brand new Banjo Kazooie game, Playtonic Games would be the most logical option and it would make the most sense. However, there's been some question in terms of how interested they would actually be in making a brand new Banjo Kazooie game. One thing, they recently announced a brand new Yooka-Laylee game called Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. It's a 2.5D side scroller and I might actually make a video on that in the near future, so stay tuned for that. But they seem very invested in making this brand new franchise work, and so how much room would they really have in making a brand new Banjo Kazooie game? Also, they're now owned by Microsoft, and so Microsoft would have to approach them and probably offer them more money than they would have to offer to like a company that they own to make a Banjo Kazooie game. So there's that question of whether Microsoft would be willing to hire them for Banjo Kazooie. If there's one thing that I'm pretty sure of though, it's that I'm pretty sure that the people at Playtonic Games are very aware of how big the reaction is to Banjo Kazooie being in Smash Bros. Ultimate, and that they more likely than not would have interest in making another Banjo Kazooie game. I'm gonna show some snippets of interviews that people like Steve Miles, the creator of Banjo Kazooie, and Grant Kirkhope, the composer of Banjo Kazooie, have made about, you know, their feelings towards this huge reaction that we had towards Banjo Kazooie being in Smash Bros. Ultimate and how happy they seem to be about it.
I didn't really expect people to go that crazy, you know, and it's kind of, there's something that really touches, you know, when you see somebody totally lose it with happiness, you know, I mean, like some of these fan videos, it really touches your heart. I think everyone connects on that kind of human level, you know, and to see people absolutely be that, you know, crying and laughing at the same time, you know, like I was the same. I think it feels better now, really, because, you know, back then the internet wasn't really happening back then. So, you put your game out, you might wait a month for a review for the magazines to come out and review the thing, so you wouldn't know if it was good or bad, you know. Now it's instant. People review things in the first second the thing gets released, you know. So, and for people to get to me on Twitter and Instagram and all that, you know, you really feel and seeing the videos from like the New York Comic Con, not Comic Con, the New York Nintendo store, and all, you know, all that stuff. Seeing these people's reactions, it's so touching. You know, it really does. It makes you realize just what a big force video games are in general. You know, people, when I was younger, it's all about music because video games were very small. Well, they didn't exist when I was a kid, right? Because I'm back in the dark ages, you know. So, you know, there's such a big intrinsic part of people's lives these days that it's just, I don't know.
I'll never get tired of watching those reaction videos, you know, to see people, you know, losing the shit over Banjo's appearance again after all these years. Obviously, if he'd been in a game like 3 or 4 years ago, then people wouldn't be having this reaction. Part of it is because, you know, he's been gone for so long and people feel that is a real injustice that he's been gone for so long. But yeah, I mean, I'll just watch those reactions all day, and I'd be lying if I didn't say, you know, I teared up a little bit, especially at the I think it was the Nintendo store in New York announcement, you know, where everyone's cheering and yelling. It was just, you know. There was a little tear in my eye, I must admit.
If anything, the feeling I got from watching these clips is that they still have a lot of love and passion for Banjo Kazooie, and I think if they were met with the right deal and the right offer, that they would come back to make a Banjo Kazooie game. If you recall, I made this video, my very first Banjo video, that really blew up, talking about how Grant Kirkhope didn't really believe there was an audience for Banjo Kazooie to come back, and that he didn't really believe that the original team would come back. He made these comments before this huge reaction came, before everyone saw Banjo Kazooie in Smash Bros. Ultimate. And so, more likely than not, I'm pretty sure that their feelings about a brand new Banjo Kazooie game have changed after this reaction, because I think a big reason that Grant Kirkhope said that was because he simply didn't believe that there was enough people here for a new Banjo Kazooie game or Banjo Kazooie's return. But judging by the huge reaction of Banjo Kazooie's inclusion in Smash Bros. Ultimate, I think their minds have changed. And so, Rare and Playtonic Games are the two most most likely options, or the two most obvious options that come to mind when you think about who would make the next Banjo Kazooie game. But now we're gonna go into third option, and this third option actually consists of multiple video game developers that I think, while they have absolutely no relation to Banjo Kazooie at all, I think if in some weird scenario they were asked to make a brand new Banjo Kazooie game, they really could do it, and they could bring something really interesting and new to the franchise. And so the first developer that I was thinking about is, of course, Nintendo. And so obviously we know that Microsoft and Nintendo have been very buddy recently, and Nintendo getting Banjo Kazooie from Microsoft to put in Smash Bros. Ultimate is a really huge indicator of how good their relationship is. And so I think Nintendo making a Banjo Kazooie game would be a dream come true, just because they did such a good job on Super Mario Odyssey. I have no doubt that they would do a really great job with Banjo Kazooie. But I don't think this is very likely, because Nintendo has a lot of IPs, and I don't think they would willingly make a brand new video game for an IP that they technically don't own. It would be really awesome, and I think they would make such a great game with Banjo Kazooie, but I just don't see it happening. But the second company that I think might actually have the highest chance of the companies I'm mentioning right now in making the next Banjo Kazooie game is a company named Double Fine. And so you all probably don't know who Double Fine is, but they're the creators of a game called Psychonauts, and they're currently about to come out with a sequel to Psychonauts. And Psychonauts is a 3D platformer. It's very similar to like other collectathons, and the original game came out over 10 years ago, and the original game had such a cult following that it prompted them to finally come out with a sequel a decade later. What's really interesting about this whole situation though is that they've recently been acquired by Microsoft, and I feel like that this company actually would have better experience going into a Banjo Kazooie game than what Rare currently is right now, because they're directly working on a 3D platformer with collectathon elements to it, which would come in handy if they were making a Banjo Kazooie game. And they're also owned by Microsoft, and so them being a relatively new company from Microsoft, a Banjo Kazooie revival would be a perfect game for them to like really test the waters and see what they could do. Now, there's a lot of risk in having a brand new company like that handle a Banjo Kazooie game, but I think it could be a good thing because they do have experience with collectathons, and they could bring something new and fresh to the series. Now, I know that Nuts and Bolts also was trying to bring something new and fresh to the series, but hopefully it wouldn't be in that way. Now, the third company that I had in mind that is very unlikely, and I don't see this happening at all, but I think it brings up a very interesting idea, and that's a company called Gears for Breakfast. And Gears for Breakfast are the developers of A Hat in Time, which is this indie collectathon that came out a couple years ago, and it's gotten a really huge reception when it came out. Like, it's kind of heralded as one of the best collectathons that was ever created, and it has a lot of influences from games like Banjo Kazooie and Super Mario Sunshine. And I just think that this is a company that's very new, that's very passionate, and that has a lot of motivation for making a great collectathon. And maybe the best way of bringing Banjo Kazooie back is to have a brand new company that feels very young, that feels very motivated, that really has a huge respect for the original Banjo Kazooie games, to come in and make a brand new title that sticks to the original while offering some fresh ideas. And that company doesn't really have to be Gears for Breakfast. They're just an example that I want to bring up. It could be like any new company that has a really huge passion for Banjo Kazooie and knows the classics inside and out, and knows what people loved about those games, and is willing to bring those back in a brand new game. Now, another example I want to point out is Christian Whitehead, who headed the development of Sonic Mania, which is basically a love letter to the classic Sonic games. And that is a really awesome example of a new company coming in and taking the formula that was in the classic games of a great franchise and just making it better. I can totally envision some development team out there that has the same passion for Banjo Kazooie doing the same thing, because honestly, I don't know how Rare in its current state would do making a brand new Banjo Kazooie game, and I don't know how likely it would be for Microsoft to hire on Playtonic Games when they could hire someone that's financially a lot more affordable. And so those are my thoughts. Those are a lot of options that we could kind of like consider for a brand new Banjo Kazooie game, but obviously there's so many more choices out there, and I'd be really curious as to hearing what your thoughts are on who should make the next Banjo Kazooie game. Should it be Rare, Playtonic Games, or someone completely new and not related to Banjo Kazooie? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to my channel if you like videos like these, want to see more in the future, follow me on Twitter or Twitch, and join my Discord server, the Spongy Garden. Now this is Riders, riding out. A quick shout out to my special duckies, Reese Gaming and Sodden Grider. If you would like to become a ducky, then please check out either my YouTube membership or my Patreon in the description box below. Thank you.